Hi.
Hola.
Hi, hier ist Mr. Döse.
This is Michael Bradley.
Hey, I'm Memphis.
Hey.
Hola. Hello.
I'm here with soccer.com.
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 And I'm talking with my friends soccer.com.
See you soon.
Hey guys, Josh from SoccerReviewsForYou.com, bringing you my review plus on-feet video of the TechCraft Kangaroo Leather Nike Mercurial Vapor 10 in the light bone and black colorway. Now inside the box they do include a string bag to go along with the shoes themselves. The string bag is black in color with light bone strings. It's basically like an off-white grayish color. You have a white Nike football logo on the one side and a white Nike swoosh on the other. Other than that, all you're going to find inside the box, as you guys can see, are the shoes themselves. So we'll get these guys out of the box really quickly, and we'll take a closer look at what essentially is a kangaroo leather version of the Vapor 10, which is what you get in the TechCraft pack. Every TechCraft model has obviously a modification versus the standard all-synthetic version. In the case of the Superfly 4 TechCraft, it's a regular Superfly with a kangaroo leather upper on top of the standard Flyknit upper. So it's just an extra layer of material. In the case of the Vapor 10, it replaces the Tahitian synthetic completely, making for what is pretty much an entirely kangaroo leather Nike Mercurial Vapor 10, which is a really exciting thing. So we're going to go over how this changes the feel of the Vapor in this video, the tech specs, the performance features that you should know. We're going to take a look at the weight of the shoe, as well as talk about how they fit and feel on feet. So if you are interested in learning more about the TechCraft Vapor 10, please stick around and watch the entire video. If you're interested in a pair for yourself, be sure to check out the review page on my website. That'll be the very first link down below in the description of this video. On that page, you'll find Buy It Now links with exclusive SR4U coupon codes, where you'll be able to pick these up below their normal $225 retail price. So again, if you're interested in a pair, first link down below, go ahead and check it out. And with that being said, let's get right into the review. To start things off, let's take a closer look at the colorway. Now, obviously, this is a very simple color combo. You have black and what Nike is calling light bone. And based on the pictures that you're going to see on most of the online retailers, the shoe looks to be basically black and white. But the white that you see online isn't necessarily how these look in person, and hopefully this video will be a little bit more accurate. This light bone color, although we have seen it before from Nike, and it did look more white the last time we did see it on a soccer shoe, which I believe was the Nike Tiempo Legend 4. This time around, it's white, but it has a grayish tinge to it. It's almost like an undyed leather type of look, a very natural kind of almost rugged finish, I guess is the best way to describe it. You can see the creases in the leather, you can see the imperfections in the leather, because at the end of the day, this is kangaroo skin. That's what leather is. It's the skin of an animal. So like I said, you see the imperfections, you see just little bumps and things that you wouldn't normally expect to see on a leather shoe. And just like the Canvas Volt colorway of the TechCraft pack, this does have that kind of rough finish to it, meaning that when you take your nail or take anything that scratches the surface of the upper, it actually scratches the upper. You guys can see it makes a little bit of a mark there. So these will not necessarily look brand new, even if you keep them really, really clean. It's going to show marks. It's going to have this almost like worn in kind of leather boot type look, which obviously isn't for everybody, but I personally kind of like how that kind of looks. And considering that these are a lighter color and they are going to get stained, they're going to get dirty really easily, I don't think that having the leather roughed up is going to look bad. I think it's going to make them look a little bit better in the long run. But again, that's kind of my personal opinion. Just to give you guys a better idea of the coloring, this is that light bone color, which like I said is kind of like a white grayish color. And then here is a pair of Nike ID Phantom 2s that are obviously a true bright white. Big difference between the two, so hopefully that does give you a better idea of what I'm talking about. Obviously all the other colors on the shoe, black, you have that for the outline of the Nike swoosh. The back part that is synthetic is solid black in color. You have more of that light bone gray in the Nike swoosh on the heel, the Mercurial branding going across the back. Black laces, obviously it's black across the top like you would normally find on a Vapor 10, being that this is also made from synthetic. And then of course the entire sole plate and stud pattern is solid black in color as well. So that's pretty much it as far as the colorway. Let me know your thoughts on it down below in the comment section. Do you like how these look? Why or why not? And with that being said, let's move on to the tech specs so we can learn a little bit more about the overall performance. In terms of performance, I'm personally a big fan of the TechCraft Vapor 10. Now, if you guys do want to see more detailed information or just want to see these shoes in action in terms of how this shoe performs, how it actually feels, and how it compares to the regular Vapor 10, I do have a playtest video of the entire TechCraft pack. I'll leave an annotation to that on screen. You can go ahead and watch it if you haven't already. It goes over every single model, including the Nike Mercurial Vapor 10 in the TechCraft variation, of course. But for me, the reason why I like this shoe is because this is the Vapor that people have wanted for so long. The Vapor 1 had a kangaroo leather version. The Vapor 4 had a kangaroo leather version that was extremely limited. You could only get it at one specific store, I believe in London. And this is really the first time that Nike has truly given us a kangaroo leather Vapor, 10 models later essentially. And really it's a fantastic shoe. It's a really cool modification of what the Mercurial Vapor line stands for. What's great about this is they gave us a kangaroo leather upper, but really maintained all the other elements of a Mercurial. It's got that same kind of streamlined, very modern silhouette and shape. It obviously does have that super tight kind of one-to-one fit. It's obviously not going to be quite as responsive as what you get from the synthetic model, just because you do have a leather upper as opposed to a synthetic material. That's just going to be a little bit stronger overall, but still, for a super thin, tight-fitting shoe, being that the upper is made from kangaroo leather, it still is surprisingly responsive. And of course, you maintain the exact same sole plate and stud pattern. So how does this differ from a regular pair of Vapor 10s? Obviously, the upper is not as thin. Like I mentioned at the start of this video, unlike a lot of the TechCraft models that are the standard synthetic shoe with a layer of leather on top of the upper, this leather part that you see here in this light bone color completely replaces what would normally be a synthetic upper. So it's still a very, very thin layer of leather. You get an idea of the thickness right about here where you can actually see the seam. And then of course the top part where it's black is that same synthetic tongue you'd find on a regular pair of Vapor 10s. So even though it is leather and synthetic as a combo, it still does maintain that one-piece construction and one-piece feel, and that there is no overlapping materials, which is pretty impressive that they're able to do that in the first place. So like I said, the overall fit and shape of the shoe is very much like what you're going to get from the synthetic model, but obviously the difference is the actual upper. It is definitely thicker by quite a bit in comparison to the regular Vapor 10, which I would argue is probably the thinnest shoe on the market, or at least one of them. Super barefoot feel, no extra padding at all. And this kangaroo leather isn't necessarily the opposite of that. It's very, very thin for a kangaroo leather shoe, but because it is leather versus synthetic, it does have that slight softness to it. It's a little bit more flexible, especially once broken in. It's very soft. It does have that kind of leather-like or a leather comfort that you would expect from this type of a shoe, if that makes any sense. If you've worn a leather shoe before, you kind of know what to expect, especially once the shoes are broken in. It's soft, it molds to your foot, it just has this very natural experience that you can't get from a shoe that isn't made from leather. So that's really the major modification. It's still a thin shoe. There's obviously a little bit of padding because of the kangaroo leather material, and because it is a leather upper, the finish on the surface is a little bit different as well, so it does have more of a natural touch on the ball as opposed to the synthetic one that I would say just feels a little bit grippier overall. But for the most part, this is what you would expect it to be, a leather version of the Vapor 10 while still maintaining all the elements of a Vapor. It just has a leather upper. Again, I know I'm repeating myself a lot, but that's really the best way to describe this. It's a super thin leather Vapor 10. And if that sounds good to you, this is definitely one of those shoes that you may want to look into. For me personally, I like the regular Vapor 10. I think it's the best lightweight, thin synthetic, tight-fitting shoe currently available on the market. But for me, because I am a big fan of leather shoes and I just like having that little bit of extra padding and just a softer feel to the upper in general, I do prefer the feel of the TechCraft variation, but that's not going to be the case for everybody. It really does depend on your personal preferences. And of course, the upper is still finished off with ACC all conditions control, acting as your wet control element if you were at all wondering. Laces run through the middle, as you guys can see, as the shoe does maintain its one-piece construction. The heel obviously does have a low cut, given that this is the Vapor and not the Superfly. You have an internal plastic heel counter. The back part of the shoe that is black, as you guys can see, is full synthetic, but that's not a big deal just because The majority of the shoe is leather. Obviously, all the part that is light bone is leather. So the parts you would want to be leather are, aside from the top of the foot, but I guess for pretty understandable reasons, they had to make that synthetic. The insole, fully removable. I'll give you guys a quick look at that. Mesh liner on top, perforations throughout, just a single layer of this black foam. Nothing fancy, but it does get the job done. You have a synthetic leather liner on the inside with a decent amount of padding, considering how light these things are. A compressed nylon sole plate that isn't as cool looking as the carbon fiber one on the Superfly 4, but in all honesty, it feels and performs pretty much identical when compared to the Superfly. And then of course you have the same stud pattern. It's a Mercurial stud pattern, very aggressive multi-directional traction on firm natural grass. It's part of the reason why the Mercurial series is so popular in the first place. And again, if you've worn Mercurials in the past, we're happy with the traction, you're going to be just as happy with the Vapor 10. Traction is always a strong point when it comes to the Mercurial lineup. So that's pretty much it as far as tech specs and performance details. Again, sorry for repeating myself so many times, but it's a difficult shoe to describe. It's got all the same features and characteristics of a regular Vapor, but with a leather upper. That's, like I said, the best way to describe how this shoe feels, and it's really up to you to determine what type of feel that you're looking for if you're trying to decide between the TechCraft variation and the regular variation, because they're both very, very solid options. In terms of weight, I thought we'd compare the kangaroo leather TechCraft variation of the Vapor 10 to the standard synthetic model to see if there's any significant weight difference between the two, given the difference in the uppers. So I'm going to be weighing both shoes for you today in real time using this scale. Keep in mind these are both in brand new condition and both the exact same size 9 US, so this is a very fair comparison. We'll start off with the synthetic Vapor 10, throw it on the scale, and you can see that they weigh in at 6.2 ounces, the equivalent of 176 grams. This is actually Nike's lightest current top-end model, lighter than the Superfly 4 by about a full ounce. So we'll change the scale back to ounces. Remember those numbers, pull these off, and we'll throw on the kangaroo leather TechCraft variation, and you can see that they weigh in at 6.55 ounces. So you're talking about a weight difference of about 0.35 ounces or 186 grams. So they're 10 grams heavier than the regular Vapor 10. Is that a significant weight difference? I would argue that it isn't. Both of these shoes feel extremely lightweight on your feet. Do they feel the same though? Not necessarily. Obviously you have different types of materials for the uppers. The synthetic model is tighter fitting overall. It does have more of a lockdown feel as well. But again, if you're just looking for a super lightweight feel from your shoes, you're going to get that from both the TechCraft and regular versions of the Vapor 10. So again, if you're trying to decide between the two, I don't think weight should be the deciding factor. It should really be about what type of fit, feel, and general touch on the ball that you're looking for, because in that regard, they're very different shoes. All right, so here is a look at the TechCraft Vapors on feet. On my left foot, I have the black laces that come with the shoes, and on my right foot, I have a pair of gray camo SR4U replacement laces. If you're interested in a pair of replacement laces for yourself, the website to go to is www.sr4ulaces.com. You find a direct link to that website down below in the description of this video. Now, in terms of how these things fit and feel on feet, like I mentioned earlier, the overall construction of the shoe is still the same as a regular Vapor in terms of the actual shape. It has that tight fit. There's really no extra space on the inside of the shoe, and it is relatively narrow, which again, you kind of expect from the Mercurial Vapor line. With that said, the kangaroo leather upper does feel different at the front, I guess 3/4 of the shoe, the parts that it does take up. It's a little bit softer, it's definitely thicker, and it doesn't necessarily have that same super secure sensation that you get from the synthetic model, just because it isn't quite as stiff in terms of the stretchability of the material, if that makes any sense. But it still is a very, very comfortable shoe. And once you break them in, that's where you really start to notice the leather sensation that this shoe has on offer versus the regular version of the Vapor 10. It's a lot more natural, it's a lot softer, it's arguably more comfortable. You lose some of that lockdown, you lose some of that responsiveness, sure. But again, it really depends on what type of feel that you're looking for. Both the synthetic and TechCraft versions of the Vapor are really, really good shoes. This just feels more like a leather shoe, especially once broken in, not so much from right out of the box. As far as stretching is concerned, since it is leather, it is going to stretch a little bit. They don't stretch quite as much as you might expect. The leather, despite being very soft, is actually fairly strong. So Like I said, you don't have to really worry about them overstretching or anything like that. And it's not going to make this a suitable option for really, really wide feet, even though it is a kangaroo leather shoe. But just keep in mind that it does have the general fit and feel of a vapor despite being leather as opposed to synthetic. As far as width is concerned, like I said, it's a tight fitting shoe. If you have wide feet, definitely not the best option for you. And as far as sizing is concerned, I'm wearing my usual size 9 US here, and the fit and the length is absolutely perfect. So if you are looking to order a pair for yourself, I would strongly recommend going true to size in order to achieve the best possible fit. All right, guys, that is it for my review of the Lightbone TechCraft Nike Mercurial Vapor 10. If you guys are interested in more info, be sure to check out the review page on my website. That'll be the very first link down below in the description of this video. On that page, you'll find the high quality images of this exact pair that I took myself. That'll give you a better idea as to how these actually do look in person. And you'll also find buy it now links with exclusive SR4U coupon codes, where you'll be able to pick these guys up below their normal $225 retail price. So again, if you're interested in a pair, first link down below, go ahead and check it out. If you have any questions at all regarding the TechCraft Vapor, leave them down below in the comments and I definitely will get an answer out to you. If you enjoyed today's video, found it helpful and informative, be sure to support it with a like. Subscribe if you haven't already for daily videos on all the latest and greatest soccer gear. You can find all my social media information linked in the description as well. Other than that, guys, hope you enjoyed today's video. As always, thanks for watching.